Good to go. I think we're live. Is that
All right.
correct? Great. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Adrian Fine, Mayor of Palo Alto, and I'm here today with Ed Chicata, our city manager. Welcome, Ed.
Hello, good afternoon.
Thank you. This is our third table talk, right?
I think it is.
Third or
Time
fourth,
flies.
where we just give a brief chat about the state of affairs in Palo Alto, touching on the coronavirus public health crisis, economic impacts in the city, and anything else that we've kind of heard through our community support line, through emails to the city council, or just anecdotes around town. I hope everyone is staying safe and well, and thank you for joining us today. So, as many of you know, we are now a week into our new county shelter-in-place order. This one goes through the end of May, and of course, the county public health officer may extend it. And there are several developments with that new order we wanted to touch on today. So you must continue to shelter in place. Please wear face coverings, use proper hygiene, and practice social distancing while out in public. Speaking of wearing face coverings, this coming Monday, the City Council will actually be discussing whether we want to require our community to wear face coverings when outside. Milpitas and Cupertino have done that. Right now, the county order requires you to do it in a place of business. And so we're going to be discussing whether you do it outside all the time. Honestly, I've been looking at my City Council email. We've had a bunch of knowledgeable doctors and professors write us in the past few days. Some saying we absolutely should do it, and some saying it's a waste of time. So, these public health issues are tough, and at City Hall we do our best to evaluate them to keep everybody safe within our abilities. A few other items. So the county's order does urge you to wear them when visiting an essential business. Actually requires you, but outdoors when you're walking on streets or in parks, you don't need to. And if the city council approves it, it will be required to wear it at all times when leaving your home. A couple other changes. I think, Ed, you were going to cover some of these, right?
Yes, well, just in terms of a few related items. First off, on the face coverings, we have a request from our businesses that if the council does make this approval with the face coverings, that we'll also identify some basic signage that we can share with businesses, so there's a consistent look and that all around town, ideally, we have a very similar message to the public, and hopefully it's one of unity as well as here are the rules. So speaking of rules, just a few other things to pick up on. First, just a reminder that with the new order, that landscaping and gardening is now allowed. There is a little, I think, a misalignment or alignment that's still being worked on between the state and county orders. But that said, we and other cities throughout Santa Clara County are allowing gardening and landscaping to proceed. Another is that construction is also back up, and you're seeing that around town. Same for real estate, both transactions and showings and work along those lines. Same for city infrastructure projects. Also, you should now have seen, if you're in the area, our California Avenue Garage beginning work, as well as starting work on our Highway 101 bike bridge near the Baylands. Speaking of which, for those who have heard that the Lefkowitz undercrossing at the Baylands is now open, that's only going to be open until May 18th, because we will need to close it again, and it'll be closed permanently because of the construction activity itself that will be happening right there.
Thanks, Ed. I certainly know that'll impact me because, as I told you earlier, that's been my bike route, going up Embarcadero, around the Baylands, and through the underpass. So getting one last walker ride there in the next 10 days or so. Turning to the city budget, getting back to business and getting up and running in our community directly ties to our city's budget and the ability for this community to quickly recover from the current public health emergency. I've heard people call it a depression, recession, a catastrophe. We all know how much our local businesses are suffering, but that directly impacts the city's revenues and our ability to provide services. This past Monday, the City Council adopted a budget scenario, assuming that revenues will drop by about $39 or $40 million in fiscal year 21, which begins July 1st. For a reference point, our budget was planned to be $240 million. So that's about 16 or 17% of our revenues that we're expecting to not be there. This is primarily the transit occupancy tax, the hotel tax, and sales tax, tax that when you purchase a good in a business or store, some of it comes to the city. we are expecting those two sources to decline by about 50%. And to keep this in context, on hotels, we have fairly good month-to-month data. On sales tax, it's a much longer lead time. And so the city will have to look and reassess come the fall what our revenues actually look like. So the past Monday, the council said, let's adopt a pretty extreme scenario of $40 million of revenue loss. And we asked city staff to come back with a budget that reflects that. The community can join this conversation at cityofpaloalto.org/budget. There are a number of participatory tools where you can kind of work through some of the numbers, highlight what you think is important in terms of city services. And we encourage everyone to please do that or email the city council.
In fact, Mayor, if I could make a special plug on that, we are actually really trying to ramp up the level of engagement that can be done through those tools. So if you go on right now, you'll see a little survey that allows people to identify where they would put priorities among different areas of city services. And then over the course of the next week, we'll be able to update that survey based on the cuts that are unfortunately under consideration. People can weigh in on how they feel about those cuts and if they're in the right areas. So we will be evolving those tools over the next few weeks. So again, just want to make a special plug for that.
Thank you, Ed. So yeah, on that note, I mean, it's pretty hard to conduct a public meeting nowadays, but we are doing the absolute best we can through Zoom sessions like this or through our public meetings where the public can dial in, join the Zoom or submit comments. So as we get into budget meetings next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, please do feel free to join, to send us an email and to use those budgeting tools so we can get your feedback as best as we can. I do want to mention a couple things on this budget because it's going to be brutal. We cannot restructure our budget simply by drawing on reserves, and we have to look seriously at every city service area. I also want to emphasize, we've been receiving a lot of emails saying, please preserve this service, but cut the city staff. And I really want everybody to understand those two things are the exact same. This city is a service organization, and our city employees provide services, whether it is utilities, road work, policing, recreational programming, helping you with a permit at the development center. The services and the staff are the same thing. And so it's really important to keep that in mind. So going through a couple of these items that we're looking at, and this is pretty heartbreaking, but with over 55% of the city's general fund supporting public safety services, library and community services, the reductions have to affect those areas. And so I'm going to go through a couple bullet points about where we're looking at making some reductions. Of course, these are still just proposed. The city is required by the end of June to adopt a formal budget. So in the area of police, we're looking at reducing service levels in patrol, traffic programs, animal control, investigations, records, dispatch, and lobby hours, and more, with this representing potential reductions of 29 sworn and non-sworn professionals in our police department, 2 part-time positions as well. Within the fire department, we are looking at reducing fire emergency response resources and staffing, fire prevention services, and also looking at ways where we may be able to have better cost recovery in the fire department. These changes represent a potential reduction of 7 positions. For the libraries, we're looking at closing the College Terrace Library for 2 years, reductions in hours of the Children's Library to potentially 4 days a week, and evening hour reduction at Rinconada. These changes represent potential reduction of 7 to 10 full-time positions, 7 full-time and 10 part-time positions. If we look at community centers, art, and community services programming, we are looking at reducing community center operating hours at the 3 community centers and the art center, reducing programming and temporarily pausing exhibitions at the art center and children's theater, increasing the junior museum and zoo cost recovery when it reopens, planned for October. I think that's still the plan, but we'll see.
Well, in all likelihood, it will be pushed back because of the delay to construction.
Yeah. So looking at increasing those ticket prices to $18 per ticket. These reductions and a few others represent 13 full-time positions and 15 part-time positions. In transportation, we are looking at eliminating the free crosstown and Embarcadero shuttles and restructuring the residential parking permit programs in a few neighborhoods across town for efficiencies. In housing and code enforcement, There are reductions to long-range planning and housing priorities, reductions to code enforcement and building inspection and plan review. Next day inspections will no longer be an option for most projects. These and other changes represent potential reductions to 11 positions. For trees and sidewalks, we're looking at reductions in tree maintenance and sidewalk repair programs. These changes represent a potential reduction of 3 staff positions. On utilities, which is kind of the whole other side of the house in terms of the city's budgeting and operations, we are looking at maintaining or putting forward a 0% rate increase for the next year to utility customers. Given the economic circumstances, the city manager, and I think council and staff felt this was the right thing to do, but that puts more pressure on utilities, given, inflation and costs still do increase, even if we're in a recession or depression. Some of the cost offsets we're looking at is suspending the carbon neutral gas program, deferring replacement of gas PVC pipes, deferring cross-bore inspections, deferring sewer replacement projects, and this is totaling a potential staff reduction of 5 positions. So I don't have the exact numbers on hand, but across the board in a city workforce of 1,100 full-time employees, we're looking at about 90 reductions. And I think there's an additional 300, 350 part-time positions. Is that about right?
Actually, it's about 30.
30, reduction of 30.
Reduction of 30, yes, thank you.
In the part-time position. So, these are serious and significant changes. For some of you who may know, public sector employment has different laws and regulations around it. So we have to work through that with our labor units. But it's going to be tough. And over the next few days, City Council is going to be weighing things like the Art Center versus the Library Center, policing versus road work and tree trimming. I do want to emphasize, Council has set this goal of $39 million reductions. It's up to us to stick to that and reach it now. And another kind of proviso there, if we decide to not cut as deeply in one area, it means another area actually has to give twice as much. And so we are trying to spread the pain across the board, but also understand the city's, essential functions in terms of public safety, community service, and keeping this a great place to live, to raise a family, to go to school or get a job. So it's tough. We encourage your engagement on the issue. Please feel free to email me, my colleagues on City Council, or the city manager. And I've been speaking for a while. You want to finish off on budget? Anything else to add there?
Well, maybe rather than just add, and to your point, this is going to be a brutal process that we're going through. And so we recognize and appreciate all of certainly the hard work of our city staff and for the community members that are helping us work through the challenge. It is a strong reminder of the connection between our services and the revenue that we need to bring into the city in order to provide those services. And just as a small example of our attempt to provide support to the business community, would note the City Council approved this past week the establishment of a small business grant program, total allocation of about $500,000 that we're now working through the process of putting together applications, again, really to help small businesses make it through this difficult time, then get to reopening, which again, the reopening and really getting our economy going again is critical to our ability to continue services and really just recognize all the interconnections that exist within the community. So if there are small businesses that are keeping an eye on that grant program, or you know of anyone that might be interested in applying, the website to take a look at is our cityofpaloalto.org/business recovery. And we've got some basic information there along with a pre-application. It's a very simple form for businesses to fill out, and that gets them in the queue, and will provide additional information as the final forms and all the details come together there. So again, a difficult time for everyone in the community, but this is hopefully a little bit of good news along the way.
Yeah, no, I think, one thing we just talked through a number of reductions. One area the city is looking at maybe even investing more is in terms of economic development and recovery. Just to emphasize, as the city manager mentioned, our city is funded partially by property taxes, partially by real estate taxes, but also largely by sales tax, business receipts, and hotel taxes. And, with all of our whether it's a big tech company or a sandwich shop or your local attorney or accountant not working and sheltering in place, our local economy really suffers, and we have less revenue to provide the services that Palo Altans love. So we are looking at ways that we can help those businesses. Also, there's been a lot of talk about closing university to cars and maybe making it a pedestrian thoroughfare. I'm totally in support of that. We're looking into it. Cleaning up some of our business regulations to make it easier and quicker to do business here in Palo Alto. Okay, wrapping up on that note, we had takeout from Ike's today. It was great. How about you, Ed? Where have you gone in the past week or so?
I've been staying in. I'm sorry. I need to exercise some of my own supporting local business, but it's been a little intense in getting things out the door in terms of reports, but I will be out there next week.
All right, great. Wrapping up, call us. The city is here for you. Our residents, our businesses, visitors, we're here to keep you healthy, keep you happy, and serve you as best as we can. The community support call center is available Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. at 650-272-3181. The city has a great website, cityofpaloalto.org/coronavirus, and there's a newsletter there, which is getting up to tens of thousands of folks every day with a lot of great information. Please only call 911 if you're experiencing a life-threatening emergency. These table talk chats are just one more way we're trying to connect with you all. If you have feedback or ideas or questions, shoot me an email. It's just adrian.fine@cityofpaloalto.org. And again, for regular updates, cityofpaloalto.org/coronavirus. Ed, hope to see you again next Friday at 2 p.m. for our next chat right here on YouTube.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone. Stay safe.